It started as a dare. 3 of us, Ryan, Jess, and me, were sitting in the living room of an old rental house on the outskirts of town, the kind of place with drafty windows, yellowed wallpaper, and that faint smell of damp wood that never rarely leaves. The place had been empty for years before we moved in, a temporary home for college dropouts and lost souls. Jess found the Ouija board in a dusty trunk in the attic, wrapped in an old army blanket like someone wanted it hidden. The letters were hand-carved, almost burned into the wood. The planchette real oak, smoothed down by time, looked like it had been used 1,000 times before. We weren't drunk, just bored and curious, the worst combination on a stormy night. "Let's talk to whoever used to live here," Ryan said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. So we sat in a circle. The candles flickered against the peeling wallpaper, shadows stretching unnaturally long. "Is there anyone here with us?" Jess asked. At first nothing, just the wind pushing against the walls, the faint hum of rain. Then, slowly, the planchette began to move. It crept toward. Yes, we all froze. Ryan laughed. Too loud, too fast. "Okay, which one of you is messing with it?" None of us spoke. I could feel a faint vibration under my fingertips, like the board was breathing. "What's your name?" I asked. The planchette glided across the board, smooth and deliberate. Harper. Jess frowned. "That's weird." The box upstairs had the name Harper written on it. Before anyone could respond, something tapped the window. Once, then again. Ryan stood up to look. Rain slid down the glass in uneven streaks. "Nothing out there," he said, but his voice sounded thinner, uncertain. The planchette started moving again. L-O-O-K. Jess's breath caught. "Look where," she whispered. The candles flickered. Violently, a draft blew through the room, though every window was shut. The flame nearest to me stretched tall, then bent sideways, pointing toward the hallway. Something moved there, just beyond the reach of the light. A soft shuffle, a faint scrape, like bare feet on old wood. I whispered, "Harper, is that you?" The planchette shifted again, almost lazily. Y-E-S? Then it began to spin, faster and faster until it flew off the board and clattered into the darkness. Jess screamed. Ryan turned on the flashlight app on his phone, but the screen went black instantly. We sat there, frozen, breathing hard. Then, from the hallway, a whisper, dry and low, like a breath dragged through dust. "Why did you open it?" We ran. Straight out of the house, into the storm, not even bothering to grab our coats. We didn't stop until the car doors slammed. Shut behind us. None of us slept that night. When we returned the next morning, the house was quiet again. The board was back in the living room, perfectly centered on the rug. The planchette was resting on it, pointing to a single word: morning. I would have thought it was a prank if it weren't for the next detail. In the dust on the floor beside the board, scrawled in long, crooked letters, my name, and just below, it's something else, freshly carved into the wood. "See you tonight." I bought the house cheap. Too cheap. The realtor said it had been vacant for a few years. Bad wiring and plumbing issues, the usual excuses. But the locals whispered something else, that the last owner had heard things in the walls. I didn't believe in ghosts. Not really. But I was an audio engineer. I'd spent years studying how sound behaves, how it distorts and hides beneath the noise. So when the strange knocks and whispers started around 2 a.m. every Night. I didn't call a priest. I grabbed my gear. I set up 3 recorders in the living room, 1 digital, 1 analog, and 1 old cassette deck I'd modified to catch low-frequency disturbances. I also ran an EMF meter app on my phone, just to compare. The readings were normal at first. Static hum, background crackle, the fridge kicking on. But around 2:14, the EMF reader spiked. The needle trembled, then shot to red, and the house fell silent. No wind, no hum, no sound at all. Then, through the headphones, a faint voice. At first it was just breathing, then words, broken and low, layered beneath the static like something clawing its way through frequencies. Hell? Down here? I froze. The voice wasn't echoing through the room, it was inside the recording. Overlapping the silence, I rewound the tape and listened again. Same voice. Same broken whisper. The EMF reader blinked again, small pulses, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Help. Down here, I followed the signal. The EMF needle swung toward the floor. Beneath the living room rug, I found a square outline, a trapdoor I hadn't noticed before. The air changed the moment I pulled it open. Cold, heavy, almost charged. I shone my flashlight down and saw stairs leading into a crawl space lined with old insulation and something else wires. Coiled copper wires strung along the beams like veins. The recorder hissed. Then, another voice, not whispering this time. Closer. Don't. I dropped the flashlight. Its beam rolled across the floor, landing on something in the corner. A small box of recording tapes, neatly labeled in pencil. The top tape read, Session 19 EVP. It wasn't mine. I played it right there, crouched under the floor. A man's voice filled the space, steady, confident at first. Testing. EMF frequency. If anyone's here, please respond. Static. Can you tell me your name? Long pause. It's not just noise, the man said, voice trembling now. It's responding in the gaps. Static crackled, then a faint reply. We're in the wires. I stopped the tape. The EMF meter began flashing again, this time, in patterns. 3. Quick bursts. Too long. Morse code that it spelled run. That's when the recorder on my belt clicked on by itself, and through the hiss, beneath my own ragged breathing, came the same voice from before, now louder, closer. Your next frequency. I don't remember climbing out. I just remember sunlight, weak and gray, spilling through the living room window when I finally came to. The EMF reader was still on, blinking faintly, and the cassette deck, the one I'd left recording upstairs, was still spinning. I played it back before I left the house for good. The tape captured me walking down into the crawl space, my footsteps, my voice, and then silence. A minute later, something else whispered over the tape, my own voice, answering. Help. Down here. When my sister died, I couldn't stop replaying the last voicemail she left me. Her voice was calm, too calm. If you want to see me again, she'd said, wait until midnight. Bring mirrors. I thought she was delirious from medication. But when the police found no sign of her body, only her phone shattered on the bathroom floor, something inside me broke too. A month later, I did exactly what she asked. The old farmhouse we grew up in was still standing, though barely. I drove there after sunset, bringing 3 mirrors, 1 handheld, 1 full length, and a small antique I'd taken from her room. I placed them in a triangle on the floor of the living room, just like she'd drawn in her diary. Her notes were strange, half-obsessed. Mirrors, remember. They reflect the soul back through the gap. Low light makes the boundary thin. If it answers, don't look away. I turned off the lights. The moonlight leaking through the windows was just enough to see my own reflection in all. 3 mirrors fractured, overlapping, wrong. Then, from somewhere in the house, a click. The old bathroom light flickered on. I whispered, "Emma." The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest. In the mirrors, my reflection began to lag, like an old video buffering a second behind my movements. "Emma, if you're here, show me." For a heartbeat, nothing. Then my reflection smiled. I didn't. Every hair on my arm stood up. The smile in the mirrors widened, slow and unnatural, stretching too far. Behind it, something like a shadow leaned forward, dark, fluid, attached. The handheld mirror cracked first, a thin fracture splitting down the center like an open eye. The EMF reader I'd set on the floor began to beep, erratic and fast. I stepped back, my pulse hammering. "Emma, stop." The reflection didn't stop. It kept moving. The figure in the mirrors stepped forward until its face pressed against. The glass pale, blurred, its mouth still shaped into that awful smile. Then, softly, I heard her voice. "You looked?" That's how they cross. All 3 mirrors shattered at once. The sound was deafening, like gunfire in a small room. I covered my face, glass raining down around me. When I opened my eyes, the floor was empty. The mirrors were gone, not broken, just gone, leaving dark rectangles where the moonlight didn't reach. But I could still see her, reflected faintly in the window pane behind me. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was standing right over my shoulder. When the lights started flickering in the house, I told myself it was just the wiring. Old homes do that. But when my keys slid across the counter one night, slowly, deliberately, like an invisible hand pushing them, I stopped pretending. I'd moved in 2 months earlier, after finding the place through an online listing. Cheap rent, quiet neighborhood, lots of character. The kind of house you don't ask questions about. At first it was little things, doors half open, objects. Not where I left them. Then came the noises, faint rattles, footsteps in rooms I knew were empty. I started reading online about hauntings, about how to make contact. Every guide said the same thing. If you want a ghost to show itself, give it something to play with. So, I set a few things out before bed. A toy truck I found in the basement. A tennis ball. A stack of dice. And an empty soda can. The idea was simple. If something moved, I'd know I wasn't imagining it. At exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke to the sound of a soft clatter. The dice were rolling across the floor. I turned on my phone light. The toy truck had shifted halfway across the room. The soda can was spinning slow at first, then faster, as if stirred by an unseen breath. "Is someone here?" I whispered. The can stopped. Then it tipped over and rolled toward me. I could feel the air in the room change, heavier, colder, like the atmosphere itself was holding its breath. My EMF app blinked erratically, spiking red. I tried to laugh. "It off, okay? You've got my attention." The truck's headlights flickered. I hadn't even noticed they had batteries. The ball rolled in a slow circle, bumping gently against my shoe. Then, in the quiet that followed, something tapped twice. On the wooden floor, knock, knock. It took me a moment to realize the rhythm. 2 knocks. Pause. 1. Then 2 again. I grabbed a notepad and wrote it down, translating the pattern from Morse code. It spelled P-L-A-Y, play. I said out loud. The dice rolled again, this time spelling a perfect 6 on every side dot. Then all the toys moved at once. The truck lurched forward. The tennis ball bounced, but no one had touched it. The can rattled violently until it crushed in on itself with a hollow pop. I backed away, but the floorboards groaned beneath me, like someone was walking just below the surface. "Okay," I whispered. "You win?" The movement stopped instantly. The toys lay perfectly still, as if nothing had happened. But when I turned to leave, I saw a small handprint on the wall near the door, smeared faintly in dust. Too small to be mine. Too fresh to be old. I left everything there and went straight to bed, trembling under the covers. When morning came, sunlight filled the room. Everything looked normal again, except for one thing. The toys had moved, arranged neatly in a circle, facing the bed. And on the floor, written carefully in chalk, though I never owned any, was a single word. Again. My mother always said that spirits respond best to manners. "Be polite when you call them," she used to whisper, half joking, half serious. "And never say a name unless you mean it." I didn't take her seriously until the night I tried to speak to my grandmother. It was late October, the kind of cold that seeps through the windows, even when they're shut tight. I'd been dreaming about her for weeks, always the same dream. She's standing in the kitchen, back turned, humming the old hymn she used to sing while making pie. I'd call to her, but she never turned around. After the 3rd night in a row, I decided to try contacting her properly. I followed an online ritual I found for safe and respectful communication with the deceased. I lit 3 candles, arranged them in a circle, and placed a tiny silver bell in the center. On a plate beside it, I set 2 things my grandmother had loved: a powdered donut and a small box of orange Tic Tacs. "Hello," I said softly. "My name is Sarah. I'd like to speak to Margaret Harris, born June 7th, 1944. The room felt still, the kind of stillness that presses against your chest. "I just want to say I miss you," I continued. "If you're here, please join me." The candle flames bent toward me, like something exhaled from the darkness. The bell jingled just once. Then came a warmth, a subtle shift in the air. For a heartbeat, I thought I smelled her perfume, lavender and sugar. "Grandma," I whispered. Silence. Then a faint tap behind me. The framed photo of her, which had been sitting on the mantel for years, had turned to face the wall. The bell rang again. Louder this time. I just want to talk," I said. My voice trembled. "If you can hear me, can you?" A soft reply, like a breath drawn too close to the ear. "You shouldn't have called me that name." I froze. The voice was hers, warm, gentle, but something was wrong. It wasn't coming from one place. It was everywhere, echoing faintly from the walls, the windows, even the glass on the table. I thought you'd want to see me. You didn't use my name." The Tic Tac box rattled. I stared at it. The candies inside moved one by one, clicking like tiny teeth. "She's not here anymore," the voice whispered. "But I came when you called." The lights flickered. The air turned icy. I could see my breath now. The shadow cast by the candlelight stretched, growing longer, darker, until it reached the ceiling. Something in it smiled. I stumbled back, knocking over the plate. The donut rolled across the floor. stopping at the base of the shadow. The silver bell rang a third time, shrill, metallic, final, and then the shadow spoke again, this time in my own voice. Now I know your name too. The candles went out. When I woke the next morning, the donut was gone. The bell was still there, resting on the table, and beneath it, carved faintly into the wood, were two words: hello. Sarah.